The FBI's Russian investigation, known as Crossfire Hurricane, is getting a closer look. President Trump recently ordered documents related to the 2016 probe to be fully declassified.
Between 2016 and 2017, the agency investigated whether members of Trump's first campaign colluded with Russia in the run-up to the 2016 election. Ultimately, then Special Counsel Robert Mueller concluded there was evidence of Russian meddling, but no actual collusion with Trump's campaign.
Trump has demanded all documents be made public. Here to dive in is Grayzone journalist Aaron Mate, who covered RUSSIAGATE extensively. Welcome back to Rising.
Good to be here.
So we've heard lots of promises of lots of disclosures of documents relating to all sorts of things that are interesting to people on the right, people on the left, people outside the mainstream media. And I think it's fair to say there's been a lot of disappointment so far. What's going on with this story?
Let's first of all recall that this entire thing was a scam. The collusion aspect was a scam. We know that now. Hillary Clinton's campaign paid Christopher Steele to come up with this ludicrous dossier of conspiracy theories about Trump and Russia. No one takes that seriously anymore. People who defend that aspect of the probe still want to cling to other claims to argue that this was credible. The whole thing was a farce, including the allegations of Russian meddling, which also comes from the Clinton campaign as well. This allegation that Russia hacked the DNC and gave the emails to WikiLeaks and launched a massive social media campaign. All the available evidence undermines that as well. So it's been hard to get accountability for this because so many people were implicated, not just the Democratic Party, but also the intelligence agencies that were complicit in this, and much of the corporate media, which acted as stenographers for the RUSSIAGATE fraudsters. And even Trump, in his first term, when he tried to declassify some documents, got heavy pushback from members of his own administration, people like William Barr, because they also did not want to embarrass their colleagues inside the intelligence community. So getting sunlight on this scandal has been very, very difficult. Now Trump is promising a new release of documents, as you mentioned, but even what he's promising is not actually very interesting. He's talking about declassifying this binder, the so-called binder, that he tried to have release in the final days of his first term. But what we actually know about that binder is low-hanging fruit. It's basically materials related to the FBI's reliance on Christopher Steele for its surveillance warrant applications of Trump campaign volunteer Carter Page, and text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, who were two FBI officials that were heavily implicated in the RUSSIAGATE scam. We know by now that the FBI relied on Christopher Steele. We know that Lisa Page and Peter Strzok were biased against Trump. This is all very low-hanging fruit. So even when this comes out, I'm not expecting something very significant. The real materials have yet to be released, and I've yet to see any serious commitment by Trump and his team to releasing those materials.
When you say the whole thing is a scam, Aaron, I'm honestly unclear as to exactly how complete you consider that to be. You don't believe that Russia hacked or got unauthorized access to DNC emails, or do you?
Correct. I think the entire thing, including the Russian hacking allegation, is a scam. Think about it. At the same time as the Clinton campaign was paying Christopher Steele to spread propaganda about a Trump-Russia conspiracy, the Clinton campaign was also hiring a firm called CrowdStrike to lodge the allegation that Russia hacked the DNC. And what did we learn 1 year after the Mueller probe shut down? We learned that the head of CrowdStrike, again, a Clinton campaign contractor, just like Christopher Steele, admitted under oath to the House Intelligence Committee that, yeah, by the way, we do not have any evidence of Russian hacking. And that testimony was kept under wraps throughout the entirety of Mueller's probe for obvious reasons, because it undermined the core allegation of Russian hacking. What happened was some anonymous officials in the intelligence community said that Russia hacked the DNC. And rather than say, what's the evidence for it, the entire media pretty much went along with it and wrote it down like loyal stenographers, when all the available evidence, including the testimony I just mentioned, and many others, which I've written about extensively, show that there is no evidence that Russia hacked the DNC. I don't know how those emails got passed on to WikiLeaks. My guess is that this was actually a human being who took them from the DNC and gave it to them, but I can't prove that. What we do know is that all the available evidence of Russian hacking is exists to undermine the existing allegation. The only thing that's real here in terms of Russian meddling was that, yes, a Russian troll farm based in Russia put out some dumb memes on social media that nobody saw and that were barely about the election. There were stupid memes about Yosemite Sam criticizing gun control laws in the U.S. and a image of Jesus consoling a young man with masturbation problems. That's literally what one of them was. Very minimal contact about the election. If people want to call that election meddling, okay. But beside that, the entire thing was a scam.
And I know Robbie has more questions, but I'm just trying to be clear, and these are not gotcha questions. As you're well aware, having written about this extensively, a grand jury did indict 12 Russian intelligence officers in 2018, members of the GRU, on the charge, essentially, that they had been involved in hacking. Now, those people were, of course, indicted in absentia, because there's no real chance of them being brought before American courts. So you think that was a propaganda move, basically, do you?
I do, because to reach that indictment, first of all, there's the old adage, a grand jury can indict a ham sandwich. So that's not, to me, very significant that there was an indictment handed down. And again, the indictment that it was based on, we don't know the evidence that indictment was based on. We just don't know like where it comes from. And Robert Mueller's team so many times played loose with the facts. They wrote all these disingenuous indictments suggesting that they had something about collusion when really they had absolutely nothing, and they knew that. And I think that was the case here. They needed to come up with something to justify the Russia investigation and their existence to keep this investigation going. And that's why they then pivoted to going after Trump for obstruction, because they knew that they had nothing on him when it comes to collusion. But the indictment of those alleged Russian officers, if you read it, it's a very detailed timeline of Russian hackers, pressing their keyboards in certain ways. But on what basis do we know all this? And the Mueller team never told us. And by the way, none of that information was classified, because if that information was classified, you wouldn't be able to put it in a public indictment. So I think, just like all the other aspects of Russiagate, including the Steele dossier, that was based on more fraud. And look, the one time when Russians challenged the Mueller team in court, that was when the Mueller team also indicted employees of that aforementioned Russian troll farm. And they indicted them for alleged Russian interference. Well, in that case, the Russians actually showed up to court with a lawyer, and they challenged the Mueller team. What did Mueller do? He dropped the case immediately after he was challenged to put up or shut up, to show his proof, to show his evidence. The Mueller team dropped the case. And do you know what they said? They said, if we go ahead with this case, that will jeopardize national security. Well, if it would jeopardize national security to defend your case in court, why did you bring it? Why did you bring it in the first place? It was such an obvious admission that the Mueller team had nothing to go on, and they were banking on the fact that the Russians wouldn't challenge that case. And I suspect it's the exact same dynamic when it comes to indicting those alleged Russian hackers.
Going back to the issue of more disclosures, one would think the Trump administration would be highly motivated to disclose more details of this case, especially as the consensus on what happened, even if the consensus isn't all the way in the direction you're articulating, has shifted even within mainstream media to say that there was a lot of false notions advanced on this, on how much coordination there was between Trump and Russia, and claims not holding up, including about the influence on social media looking much less important or weighty than the mainstream media made it out to be in the first place. All that being said, it would seem like the Trump administration would really want to disclose how they were unfairly targeted by various investigators, various narratives. So what are you looking? What would you like to see that would help you make the case even more effectively that you're making here today?
I have two suggestions. In 2017, the House Intelligence Committee, when it was led by Devin Nunes, wrote a report scrutinizing this key document that came out in January 2017, days before Trump took office. And that was a so-called intelligence community assessment that accused Russia of waging the sweeping interference campaign to install Trump in office. And that report, coming out right before Trump took office, it really cast a pall over the entire Trump presidency. It really tainted his first term, because the aim of it was to basically say that Trump is in office because of Russia, and it was used to fuel innuendo about a Trump-Russia conspiracy. So the House Intelligence Committee, led by Devin Nunes, wrote a report assessing the evidentiary basis for that intelligence community document. We've never been allowed to see it. What we know, or at least we never been allowed to see the full version. We saw a redacted version, and there was another follow-up report as a part of that we've never been able to see. It's been kept under lock and key in the basement of the CIA, literally inside a safe, because it's deemed to be so explosive. Trump wanted to release it at the end of his first term, but again, people like William Barr intervened to stop it because William Barr did not want to embarrass the intelligence community because it was such a farce that the intelligence community put its name on a product that was the result of fraud. And so I'd love to see that document released. What I know about it already is very damning to the intelligence officials behind RUSSIAGATE. I'd also love to see the aforementioned reports by the firm CrowdStrike, which was, again, a cyber firm hired by Hillary Clinton, which launched RUSSIAGATE by first accusing Russia of hacking the DNC, only to later admit under oath that actually, oops, by the way, we have no evidence for that. So CrowdStrike wrote a series of reports that they redacted themselves and then gave to the FBI, which I know that the FBI relied on to pursue their Russian hacking claims. When I've tried to get those documents released through the Freedom of Information Act, the FBI has either denied that those reports are in their possession or redacted them entirely. It's time for that secrecy to end. Just as we know that the Steele dossier was a Clinton campaign-funded scam, it's time to have some transparency on the other Clinton campaign-funded scam, which was the CrowdStrike reports. And why is that? Because this allegation that Russia hacked the DNC, it feels so trivial now because it's so old now. But at the time, this was used to not only fuel Trump-Russia conspiracy theories, but also to make diplomacy with Russia impossible. And I believe that this climate of hostility toward Russia and accusing it of basically launching a cyber 9/11 against the US by hacking emails fueled this climate of animus, which helped lead to, for example, a war in Ukraine that is still ongoing today. So I think releasing those documents would not only shed light on a massive scam, but help reduce tensions between the world's top two nuclear powers, which right now is badly needed.
Got to leave it there. Aaron Mate, thank you so much for joining us to discuss. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Next up, Joe Rogan and Bernie Sanders agree on a very important issue. Niall and I don't agree on it. We're going to debate it. Stay with us.